Hello and welcome, Inspired Podcast community. This is your new episode. My name is Caroline, and my today's guest is Susan Boyd. Hello, thank you for saying yes. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And I want to introduce you a little bit to the audience. You told me you are in Arizona time, that is Pacific time zone. This is
Mhm.
amazing that we
Yeah.
meet today. You are an entrepreneur and tutor coach for parents who have children with challenges. You have to explain because ADHD, I know what it is. It's the same abbreviation in Germany, here in Germany.
Mhm.
But IEP, I don't know what this stands for. So, can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Yes. I'm a grandmother and a mother and a retired special education teacher of
Oh,
29 years. And now I'm helping parents of children. And an IEP is individualized education plan. So
wow.
each child is unique with their challenges. And I love it because we are all individuals, right?
Yes.
So I'm helping parents through one-to-one coaching, and I also have a course program with the mastermind because ADHD is attention deficit
Mhm.
hyperactivity. And with my 29 years of experience, I've learned many strategies, taught over 1,000 students, and have engaged with many families. And it's a challenge sometimes, especially coming into the summer months when school is not open.
Yes.
And
That's
so I've
true.
helped foster care providers provide program director leadership with summer programming to engage elementary all the way to high school and college, actually.
Wow, I love that. And I understand because it's difficult and it's a challenge for parents as well.
Mhm.
And yeah, and what inspired you to do this, to help others now?
Well, may I tell you a little bit of personal story?
Yes, please.
My mother and father had single parents homes in the 1940s and 50s, which wasn't socially acceptable. And, they met with a lot of, I'll say, taboo or social bullying, but they created a family, cohesive family. That was their goal. And they were together 60 years till my father passed a few years ago. My mother, very saintly, we call her. My brother has dyslexia. He lives with dyslexia and hyperactivity, ADHD. So I know this personally as a sister and watching my mother be called from the school's principal's office multiple times. And she was heartbroken because she didn't know what to do. And that was the early 60s before the federal guidelines actually helped children with disabilities. And it's a hidden disability. You can't see it on the outside.
Yes.
And by the way, my brother is very productive and um, he's made great achievements. He's made more achievements making money rather than my degrees with with teacher education. He's an entrepreneur. So that's what's made my shift after retirement. And actually watching his spirit, indomitable spirit of achievement, because he's very creative, out of the box thinking.
Mhm. Yes. Wow. That's inspiring in itself. Thank you so much for sharing. And I can imagine, or maybe, yeah, I can imagine, and I can tell you why. I can imagine how it was in the 60s, but because I see how it is now, and it's not perfect now. And also in Germany, where we have the obligation to go to school. I know in America you have the homeschooling opportunity, and in Germany, when you when you have so you have to to bring your children to school. Otherwise, you go into prison. And when you have difficult children, so to say, you can say atypical, or how do you call it? Non typical.
Neurodiverse.
Yeah,
Mhm.
neurodiverse children, then it is even more typical, and there's no help. So I'm very happy that you are there and you help parents. Yes, because I think it's still, um, yeah, it's needed. It's needed.
Yes.
Yes.
And,
Mhm.
um, I've had experience with creating an early intervention classroom in Pennsylvania. That's where I'm originally from. And many of those children were nonverbal children living with autism
Oh,
and with ADHD preschoolers. So that was a great learning experience for me because I developed this program and I had one friend, Marie, I'll mention her name, and Dr. Simon, who was one of my mentors um, in her building. We had this unique program with 3 counties serving 30 little preschoolers, 15 in the morning, 15 in the afternoon, learn how to get ready for kindergarten.
oh, yes. Mhm.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great teamwork, and I'm all about teamwork because you need more than one person to help with challenges.
Yes, I think so, because what I heard is that structure is very important, to structure the day as well. And I cannot imagine how you do this, how to you learn to communicate with children when they are nonverbal. How do you do this?
Well, it's intuitive. I read body language and also a little applied behavioral analysis with you look at what reinforces each child. And
Mm.
even with um, children with attention challenges, you can use the same strategies. So, for example, one little boy um, was nonverbal, but we knew that he liked the ball. And
Mhm.
so every time we would encourage him, he could speak if he chose to, he could use one word. So we would ask him, "What do you want? What do you want?" First, and then the grandmother rule, first eat your peas, then you get your ice cream,
Yeah.
the Premack principle. However, he was working and he was gaining all of these milestones, and we were audited by the state, came in, all these people from uh, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, to observe this new classroom. And the student who had been making all these milestones, of course, decided these are strange people in the classroom. This wasn't it. What do you want? What do you want? And he said, ice cream.
Oh,
That
yes.
was like 8 o'clock in the morning. We're like,
Wow.
wow.
He knew
That was
what he
newer
wanted.
and had never been in that environment. So we found an ice cream bar for him later because the cafeteria doesn't provide ice cream at 8 a.m.
Wow. But you
Yeah,
found something to motivate him, to inspire him.
yes.
Wow, this is amazing. Thank you for sharing. My next question is, who inspires you? And you already mentioned two coaches and mentors of yours.
My mother and
Mhm.
Dr. Simon, she encouraged me to find a doctoral program, and that's when I was doing the early intervention. People, artists, poets, and visionaries. So Black Elk was a Ugalala Sioux medicine man. And I mentioned my brother before as an inspiration for me to go into special education as a teacher. Um, he had a fort and he was always having trouble, but he was very knowledgeable about engines and putting things together. And in his fort was a photo of Geronimo. And, and so that inspiration has led me to Native American influences and connecting with the earth. Oh, Black Elk Speaks was a book that my 8th grade teacher had recommended when we went to interview a professor. and the college students were reading it. So I read it as a ninth grader. And Oglala Sioux, Black Elk Speaks, was at the turn of the century. He had a vision of the tree of peace,
Mm.
where all people come together as one. And I don't know if you remember um, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee in 1970 came out. So it was a famous book about 100 years later. So I prefer to read about the peaceful interactions instead of um, the opposition, because there always is a chance. And then Georgia O'Keeffe inspires me
Mhm.
because of her painting of the desert and the bones and the adobe. And I lived in New Mexico for a while teaching as well. And ironically, right near her ranch in northern New Mexico, teaching natives. And Alexander David Neal was an adventurist in the turn of the century of the 20, no, I should say 19th century. She went into Tibet disguised as a man, and she was from France, but she was also into mysticism. So those people inspire me, as well as Robert Frost and Emerson with
Mm.
American literature.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. I have to look them up, and yeah, and I have to re-listen to this episode, of course, because I learned so much already. But I have another question, and it is, how do you inspire other people?
I inspire others through peace and acceptance. So one of the positions I had was in the bottom of the Grand Canyon.
Mhm.
And when I was a volunteer at 20 years old, I learned many different cultures. And the Grand Canyon of Arizona has international tourism. So you have all different cultures and all different languages. And I was a backcountry ranger and a trail crew maintenance person there. Then I moved back to Pennsylvania and became a mother of 4 children, but I still lived remotely in the mountains of Pennsylvania. After my children were grown, unfortunately, my first husband and I divorced, and I moved back to Arizona. And I was called to work in the Grand Canyon again on the Supai Reservation. The Havasupai live in the Grand Canyon. That's their territory, their land. So sometimes I was the only person not of that tribe down there teaching children with disabilities. And one little boy, definitely, his family and I, we were friends, and I supported her son to get more services, even though it is very remote. It's the most remote place on North
Yeah.
America, United States, to teach. I was able to fly in on a helicopter instead of hiking, but some of my more able-bodied friends would hike in and out. So inspiration, how do I inspire others? I've also had many students attend college, and they still reach back with, now that they're adults, they are friends of mine on Facebook. And it's always great to see. I'll just mention too, Joseph and David, they're out of school. Oh, and I should mention Wally, he's an artist. In case I'll tell their
Oh.
parents, listen up, I mentioned your son's name.
Yeah, yeah, please listen up and connect and yeah, to me and share this episode. It's amazing. And the message, of course. Thank you so much. And my next question is, what are your gifts and talents?
My gifts and talents. I'm very creative and flexible. I think outside the box. My brother and my experience every year teaching, you have a lesson plan and you have to change it immediately. It's not working. So, and my gift is to be able to be intuitive, to read what the child needs and wants, to go through that pathway of learning. So intuitive strengths and listening, active listening
Oh, yeah,
are my
that's
strengths.
important. Thank you so much. And what is your goal for 2024?
My goal this year is to help support and influence families of children with special needs to create more harmony in their home because it is a challenge with the different environments. If it's work, if it's school, if it's home, I hope to influence at least 100 families this year.
Wow. This is so you influenced my family already. Count me in. Count, yeah, count into the 100, and you influenced also this podcast because this is my purpose to to meet people and to do interviews, and I love this so much. So I have one last question for you. And it is when people reach out to you after listening to this episode, how can they help you? And do you have special offers or services?
Well, I want to add that children have been my teacher, parents have been my teachers. So I believe in reciprocation of learning, and I'm an active learner. And how can people reach out to me? Through Calendly. I have the link below. I
Yeah.
thank you for providing that. And also on Facebook, Susan Boyd. And there's 2 links. And I don't know if I was cloned, but they're both me, my photos. I had 2 emails. I think that's what happened. And you'll see one of the background of the Havasupai Falls and also one of my banner that says transformational help with leading a better life. I mean, let's talk about harmony. It is a change, it's a time of change with the celestial planets and spirits. You know, thank God. God is love, and He's come into my heart. And, I'm not a preacher, but I do believe in good things happening and following peace. And so that's through multicultural, like the medicine man of Black Elk and also Jesus Christ as an example.
Oh, I love that you mentioned this at the end because the best comes at the end, right? Wow. Thank you so much. And yeah, I think this was your last message to the audience, or do you have a statement to encourage us?
Follow your heart.
Mm.
Follow your heart. And I should add one more, Joseph Campbell, who was the hero with many faces. He traveled all over the world to look at different cultures, and he was, I think, a curator for the Natural History Museum in New York. So he's awesome mentor for how to follow your bliss. That was his saying, actually, not mine.
Oh, I love that you mentioned this because today, 1 year ago, I was in New York.
Oh,
You,
wow.
you mentioned the museum. Oh, it was so nice. So thank you so much for our interview, and please reach out to Susan. She's amazing. Re-listen to this episode and get all the golden nuggets that has been in there. Thank you so much, and see
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, the pleasure was mine, and see you in the next
Come
episode.
and visit.